Batman for the Game Boy. So I'm going to talk about both Batman 1 and Batman Revenge of Joker again. I'm going to talk about both these games again, but in their Game Boy versions of these games. So let's get on with aka the first Batman game. Okay, so the first Batman game, aka for the Game Boy, I remember I didn't realize they had a version of, Sunsoft's Batman 1 and 2. Alright, like the same NES and Super Nintendo game respectively from Sunsoft. I did not think they had a game, a Game Boy version of the game. I thought I was essentially going to be playing the same exact game as the NES one, but just dumbed down. Right? That is not the case at all with this game. This game, low-key, is this 2D platformer where you play as Batman in this Contra-like style, and you're shooting guns, at your foes and enemies over and over and over again, and other than that, and it's really, 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 and I mean really, really good music. Like, Batman, Game Boy, Batman, Sunsoft's Batman the video game Game Boy has a really good menu music, has really good just music in the stages, shooting the enemies is fun, the jump is nice, the difficulty is ramped way down, and I mean way down. It isn't just like a small little difficulty curve, and it's not like Ninja... Dude, this game is not like Ninja Gaiden at all. In fact, it's more like Contra mixed in with maybe Mega Man if you want to go that route. But I can't lie to you guys. I had so much fun playing Batman, the video game, for the Game Boy. More so than I did the NES version of the game. And that is telling you something. Because, keep in mind, usually console versions of games are supposed to be the better experience than the handheld games, right? In every way, shape, or form, they're supposed to be better. Nope. In my opinion, I actually vastly prefer, just kind of like the Ninja Gaiden situation for a long time, until the Japanese versions of those games came along in my life. I loved, the Game Boy version of Ninja Gaiden the most because it wasn't, stupid hard, it wasn't stupid easy either, it was just right. It was fine, it was awesome, it was enjoyable. It was an overall cool experience, and I remember I didn't share the stream with everybody. I only kept it to myself because I wanted to play these games for myself and, but also stream it so that way I wouldn't have to worry about, I need to do a playthrough on this or whatever. And, again, when I discovered this game and played all of its levels, there are, not only it's like Contra, but there's also, the Batwing levels in Batman the video game, which was not in the NES game, where you fly the Batwing, not the Batmobile, but you fly the Batwing, and you shoot down enemies on some Super Mario Land, shooting down enemies, and etc., etc. And, yeah, I thought the levels were solid, even though those plain ones were hard. And the boss fights, there wasn't that many. I think there was only 1 or 2, maybe 3 bosses, four bosses. There was the giant plane in the plane levels, which there's 2 or 3 of them at the end of their stage, respectively. I think, and then 2 Joker matches, and then the game is over, and that's it, right? I beat this game in 49 minutes, and I felt so satisfied, playing that little game. It wasn't even funny. Batman Return of the Joker Game Boy intro. Right? I don't know why, but, I just fell in love with it, and I was so happy, in fact, I decided to go over to I decided to say, you know what? Since we beat the first game in such a short amount of time, why not play the second? Batman Return of the Joker for Game Boy, baby. So, this game as well was extremely short. And keep in mind, I didn't ask Louis to look up anything. I low-key did not ask Louis to look up nothing for me. I wanted to figure out this game for myself, just like the first Batman game, and I was wondering if Batman 2 is going to be anything like it's Batman 1. And the answer to that question is yes and no, because this time Batman has a better, way more detailed sprite than the first game. He's not a chibi little Super Mario Land like sprite, Super Mario Land 1 like sprite, not Super Mario Land 2, but he has a bigger sprite, and there are only, like, I think 3-4 stages in the entire game, and I was surprised at that because I was just sitting there like, I remember Batman 2 for the NES slash Super Nintendo, aka Super Nintendo in this case, and there was way more levels in the Super Nintendo game than there were the Game Boy game, and I'm not 100% sure that it was because of Batman 2, like, taking up so much space with the sprites and all that, and the level design, I think that's why it took up so much space, and they couldn't have too many stages, but I ain't gonna lie to you guys, the game was super fun until you run into the bosses. Like, you can basically use your gadgets, you can use the Batarang, you can also change the difficulty to make it easier or harder for yourself. This game is still kind of like a 2D beat 'em up, where you can use your hands, but you can also use the Batarang, kind of like the other Batman games. Josiah Rodriguez, welcome, and Baseball, welcome. Talking about Batman 2 or Batman Return of Joker for the Game Boy. I've already talked about the NES and Super Nintendo version, so I might as well talk about the Game Boy version. And I already talked about Batman 1 a little bit ago. I finished that up. So we're talking about Batman 2 right now. Crystal Henry, welcome to stream. Anyways, as I was saying, let me continue onward. The bosses in this game are a little weird because, like, when you hit them and stuff, and you're at 1 HP, I highly recommend when you fight the bosses in this game, try your best to get the Batarang weapon or find a different weapon in the stage and use the Batarangs so you can damage the boss a lot quicker. Don't just spam it, just throw the Batarang carefully, keep looping him with the Batarang until he's dead if you're at 1 HP. Really don't do what I did when I just kept loading and save stating at 1 HP trying to kill the samurai dude, because the samurai dude has a slice, he throws a kunai, and that's it. And I remember that samurai dude really gave me a lot of problems, and most of the bosses in this game go down really quickly if you mash, but you gotta mash like really quick, and you gotta make sure you're in the right precise space or timing or whatever, because the hitboxes on the boss battles are weird. But other than that, Batman Return of Joker for the Game Boy is actually an extremely simple game, and you can beat this in literally 30 minutes, because that's literally what happened to me. After I beat this game, I was so satisfied, because these games, right, both of these were polar opposites of the Super Nintendo and the NES game respectively, alright? Because Batman the video game for NES was Ninja Gaiden mixed in with Mega Man. Batman Return of Joker for the Super Nintendo is literally Contra mixed with Mega Man, right? This game, on the other hand, or, you know, the Game Boy games respectively, I mean, you gotta mix a Super Mario Land 1 for the first game mixed with Contra and a little bit of Mega Man. And then the second game is like Mega Man-esque boss battles, but more like 2D beat-em-up style like the other Batman games for the second game. And what I recommend you guys play, these versions of the games for the Game Boy, I think they're solid games. They're okay, but I wouldn't recommend them for people that are just getting into the Batman series in terms of video games. You know, if you want to have like a phenomenal video game top to bottom, I would recommend playing the Arkham series. But if the Arkham series or the Arkham games, or aka the Rocksteady games, aren't for you, then I'd definitely give these Game Boy games a fair shake. You know, don't knock until you try. And I was surprised with both these games, and I'm glad I beat both these games in the same day, back to back, with relatively little difficulty. And that's all I can say for this review, because both those games are peak. I highly recommend you go and play them for yourself, man. Check them out. They're decent Batman games. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe, favorite, share the video with your friends. I know this one is really straight to the point and really on the nose, but I'm Batman.